We're here in the Hunter Valley of New South Wales and we're about to call on one of the leading trainers in the state. In fact, he's trained more winners across New South Wales than any other trainer this season. Shane Tritton has had a rapid rise to the top and he's got a number of runners engaged in this year's Inter-Dominion. Let's go and meet Shane and have a chat to him about his runners. What does the Inter-Dominion mean to you?
It's been that race that everyone as a young kid, watches and inspires to. It's kind of the grand final, I would think, in harness racing. We had a taste, it's been good, it's been exciting, but it's something that I'm looking forward to doing it as often as I can to try and, reduce the pressure of the situation and maybe enjoy it a bit more.
Take us back 12 months ago and you won a heat with Mack Beauty. That must have been a real thrill for you.
Yeah, it's you kind of don't even know you're doing it at the time. You go into a race and you're racing the same horses you're racing week in, week out. You win and you sort of forget the significance of it. That point in time, it was a strange night. It was wet. We didn't know what the track was doing. We went to the inside. We sat him up with all these things we don't usually do. So it was looking back, it was definitely a highlight of my career. But at the time, it was just something that we just did flat out. Yeah.
And it was interesting with him because, as you mentioned, you sat him in. Up until then, I guess across Australia, he'd been known as a speed horse that got out, did everything in front, and you taught him through that series to sit up.
Yeah, it was something that we decided to do to give us the best chance to qualify, especially on that night. It was a touchy night. So, I guess you got to take risks to get rewards, and paid off that night.
Now, what about, you also had a couple of runners in the supplementary heat 12 months ago. Ardgal, a horse that came from absolutely nowhere. Obviously, his form in New Zealand before coming across to Australia was quite good, but he was racing in a lot lower grade races in January before the Inter-Dominion heat. He did a fantastic job and loomed as the winner.
Yeah, no, we actually, as of yesterday, he's just changed hands. He's been sold to new owners, and they're keeping him with the stable. And we're just discussing, he raced in a C2, C4, 4 starts before he almost won an Inter-Dominion heat. So for that horse to do that, it was incredible. He deserves, he's run that night, he went super, and I think it come at a cost. I think it really he jumped that grade. You can't run from there to there and not have some sort of repercussions from it, and I think he did. But he's had a spell, he's back, he's on the way up, and he's going to make that grade. He just needs probably his time to do it.
And Suave Stewie Lombo went around in the heats last year. He's a horse that's taken a few steps in the last 12 months, and he'd obviously had a pretty tough 6 months before that as well with the trip across to New Zealand for the Cup.
Yeah, he was like the horse that travelled everywhere last year, and I think leading into the Inter-Dominion, we had a very, very ordinary prep. Took him to Goulburn, took him to Melbourne, took him to New Zealand. And when he came into the heat night, he just wasn't right. And we've learned a lot with him since then. And, we're looking forward to the Inter-Dominion with him. He's definitely stamped himself as a leading player at that level. And, he'll run a good race in the heats, and he should be there in the final.
Let's concentrate to this year. In terms of nominations, you're the #1 trainer across Australasia. You've got the most of any trainer. And having a look through your nominations, there's probably 5 or 6 horses that realistically could be in those heats when they are run. Let's go through a few of them, and we've mentioned a couple of them already. Suave Stewie Lombo, 12 months on. He's obviously, in the last 12 months, been kept to a mile. Do you see the extra distance being a problem?
I think the qualifying heat's not going to be an issue. I think the 2400's fine. We beat Quinny over 2200. It's just how you drive Stewie and where you have him at in his prep is probably the secret. He's a really good sit and sprint horse, and we need to establish that at that level, at that distance. So I'd say you'll find at that level that's how he's going to be driven over the distance. But I can't see it being too much of an issue. He's a lot more mature now, if you don't look at what he does wrong sometimes. But Yeah, I think he'll be fine, and he should be mature enough to get himself through.
Now, what's the latest with Mack Beauty? We're a month out, just a little bit over a month away from the heats, but you're saying that he won't be there?
No, I don't think so. We had the opportunity after his last run to get him checked over, and we had a couple of little issues from the vets. Nothing career-ending or anything, but they suggested that we give him a break and let him get over that. We did that, brought him back, got him checked again, and they've come up with another issue that just in like a sciatic nerve problem. Nothing major, but they're saying that it's best if we fix it now, then push on and keep dealing with it. They said if we give him the time, then he should come good. So we've spoke to the owners, and I think that's the way we're going to go. And we've got the Perth Inter Dominions coming up 3 years in a row around a track that'll probably suit him better than most. So we're trying to look at it through the best thing for the horse, and he probably won't be there this year.
What about Ardgal?
Yeah, he's back. He had a spell. He's back. He's had I think he's had about 8 weeks' work, so he's on the way up. He's got nominated through the fact that when he is right, he's ready to go in it. We're not going to push him. So at this stage, he's probably 50-50 of whether he's going to make the heats, but he certainly will be racing at that time. It's just whether he's ready to be thrown in the deep end again.
And now some horses that are on that fringe. A horse like Marc Dennis, who before the Miracle Mile probably wasn't even given any hope of making a race like that, but with his performances in the qualifying races, all of a sudden became a horse that people were saying should have made the field. Yeah,
no, he's come a long way. We didn't know a lot about him when we got him, and he beat some of the best horses in Sydney the first night we had him, and since then we've learned a bit about him and how to drive him and what to do. He'd be competitive in any race with the right run, and I think that's he's probably my least horse I'm worried about going in the Dominion. I know I can sit him in. I know he'll run home. I know the tempo will be on. So he's a horse that I think will be there, and he'll be like an Ardgal of last year. He'll be running home.
And thinking about horses that have come to your stable on low marks, and Suave Stewie Lombo obviously came as a Metropolitan performer. Mack Beauty came as a very low assessed horse, but a horse that's come to your stable at a very high assessment is easy on the eye. A horse that has been performing in the big races in New Zealand for quite some time. What are you expecting of him this time round?
Yeah, no, I really like him. I think he's definitely up to the level of Mack and Stewie. He hasn't done a thing wrong by me. We've pushed him to get him into the Miracle Mile, and he kept responding to that. I think the final in the Miracle Mile was something that he just showed us that we pushed him too far, especially that first quarter. It was obviously too far. So, I think over the longer trips, that's why we bought him. We know he's a miler, but his runs over the longer trips, from the stands, over 2,600, have been great in New Zealand against the best horses. So from a Miracle Mile point of view, he was something that we threw in and hoped for the best. From an Inter Dominion point of view, that's the reason why we bought him. So, yeah, I expect him to be a huge player on that level.
Marty Monkhauser's one that's on the cusp. Would probably need a couple of strong performances in the next few weeks to get through.
Yeah, no, he's just come back again. Same thing. We won a Group 1. Next thing, there was no other races for him bar the big one, so we threw him in, and he performed well. And then it sort of tapered off his last couple, so we gave him a let up, and he's come back now. He'd only have to win a couple of races to get himself through to the heats, but we're just happy for him to keep progressing, and if he happens to qualify, that'd be great.
And what about Saucy Legend?
Same thing, he's come back. We sort of missed the Miracle Mile period just because he'd had a lot of racing. He's come back, he's trialled twice. We're looking for a race return in the next couple of weeks. So he's one of them horses, he's about an M, probably 10. So there's not many options for him, but if he can be in the form at the right time, then he'll certainly be in the heat.
There's obviously other horses that you've nominated for the Inter Dominion that will take part in different races on the day, and you've got a very strong team of mares, 3 that have been nominated for the Inter Dominion, mares like Par's Ultimate Delight later on, and also Rathmore Lady. Probably looking at a race like the Ladyship Mile, but tell us a little bit about each of those. What do you make of them?
Yeah, no, there's a race on Inter Dominion Day that were M1, M2 assessed horses, but if you're anything higher, you had to be nominated for the Inter Dominion. So horses of mine that are M2s, M3s, that probably aren't, I wouldn't endeavour to run them in Inter Dominion, but they needed to be nominated so that they could compete in the M1, M2. So that's probably why most of the nominations are there. But, they're handy mares, and not any of them would take place in a Ladyship Mile. They're very hard races to get into, but if they did get into them, they'd be more than competitive. And especially a horse like Later On, and that she's competed against the boys in some of the big races.
Who do you think's your best mare? Is it Later On, or is it Par's Ultimate Delight? Like where Rathmore Lady, they can all run very quick time.
Yeah, they're all very different. I think the Later On is definitely the mare that's proven herself at the top level. It's just taken me a bit of time to work her out. I think even Chance, and Rathmore Lady, that they've proven that they, Chance led the Ladyship Mile last year, so they've proven that they're under the right circumstances, they'd be right. Par's Ultimate Delight's a little bit different. She's come from nowhere, and she's sort of trying to struggle to get herself back to that level. But I think pound for pound with the right run, she could beat any of them mares with the right run if they run strong enough time. She can run 51, 52. So I think Later On and probably Par's Ultimate Delight are the two that, when the times are right, they could win a Ladyship Mile.
You've led a dramatic change in harness racing in New South Wales. You've been part of that change through the way that horses blast off the gate, especially at Menangle, blister through that first 400 metres, and therefore times are getting quicker overall. Do you have to change your driving tactics now that the bigger races have arrived and that you're racing probably a stronger class overall?
Yeah, I think something that we've come to realise with the success that we've had is that we're very, you would call, immature or inexperienced at that level. We've made our success doing what we do, and we've got into those races driving the way we do. We don't have the best horses, we don't buy the best horses, so we've had to do a different style to compete with the horses that are bought for big money and the breeders that breed good horses. So I think it's something that we've got to realise, that you can't lead and run in every race you're in. 90% of them we're fine, but them really good races, sometimes we've got to bite the bullet and drive for a position rather than drive to win. But it's very hard to change when you're at the big stage. But the more we do it, the better we'll get, and the owners are just thrilled to be part of it, and we're out there, we're ambitious, and I think that's got us where we are.
In part 2 of the Shane Tritton interview, we discuss his 3 and 4-year-olds being aimed at the features on Inter-Dominion Day, and also talk about his training techniques. Make sure you watch that on Trots TV at the Harness Media Centre.
This program was brought to you by Harness Racing New South Wales and the New South Wales Harness Racing Club. This has been a Harbour Television production.